has been applied widely to the power operation and to smart grid and even to utilities operating in this space for at least a decade, that the current concepts, they are not going to change from 62443. The involvement between business partners, technology partners, either on the engineering side, on the software side, that is managing your supply chain on the product, but also your supply chain on who is helping you to maintain your infrastructure. My IT guys are saying this, my OT guys are saying this. We are not just leading with the standard, we are here to learn how to make it better, because this is how you create knowledge.
Thank you so much for joining us. Delighted to have you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me in your channel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So, Gabe, you've kindly agreed to speak at the IEC 62443 Week 2022 conference in June. And today I'd like to ask you a few questions just to give our viewers some insights into the presentation you're going to give, and also some idea of the working group activities and structures and the roadmap for the future and how perhaps they might be able to get involved in that. So let's start with your view on how crucial 62443 really is for grid operators' cybersecurity strategies right now in this moment in time.
Thank you. Great question, because 62443, even it started originally as a standard for industrial automation and process control. It has been applied widely to the power operation and to smart grid and even to the utilities operating in this space for at least a decade. And then, of course, many of them, they pioneer the idea of using 62443 as their main concept. Several of them in North America, in Europe as well, and they actually utilize the standard and the concepts as the way to first enforce the technical capabilities for the components that they were using in their installations, and also enforce also the practices for the integration, commissioning, and maintenance across their practices. And what I mean with commissioning and maintenance, it's sometimes the role of the who does the integration or the engineering work to do that commissioning or that maintenance activity. It might be the same crew that belongs to the utility, or it might be a contractor that the utility takes. So it was a very interesting journey to see how the same concepts utilized in industrial automation, they were also utilizing automation in general, including the power grid.
Right, okay. And it sounds like it's been utilised for some time within the power grid sector, so that's great. What would you say have been the major complexities when it comes to implementing the standard that operators have experienced, and how can these be managed?
So the initial apparent obstacle is the language. And it's because the language for the 62443 originally was very process control oriented. And the concepts in power generation and power distribution, they seem to be not aligned with the concepts on the industrial side. However, when many of these pioneer groups started to use it, they realized that the automation functions are still the same. The way how they are implemented might be different, but the ways to identify the roles from who is the asset owner. So the asset owner in one industry is actually who is managing the production, or who is managing the service, the electrical service, or who is providing it, or who is distributing it. And then you start identifying the language that is more suitable for you, but the back-end concept and the way of managing the tolerance for risk or the appetite for risk that every business might have, it helps on the design, on the expectation for the final product or the final, I wouldn't call it a product, the final deployment, that it depends on the components that are being integrated, the capabilities of those components, and what is, at the end of the day, the defense in-depth model that has been deployed or that has been designed and deployed for that vertical or industry. In the case of the power grid in general, it also incorporates additional factors. That is, you have a market for trading power. And the market for trading power incorporates also the many of the new technologies that today we see as decomposed software that is distributed and is actually part of the transactional activity between generators and distributors and utilities, and how they negotiate buying power or selling power, and at the same time, not only having the business side taken care by the IT side of the business, but also the OT side responding to the transactions coming from IT. Having those concepts align, first, for me was very passionate, because it was discovering new challenges that you need to deal with, and new vendors and new engineers from different perspectives that they will need to interact and have the same common language to understand what they are trying to do. And that is what is a standard for. A standard is to create that common language. Yeah. And I guess that was the biggest challenge that we had at the beginning. Yeah. The conversations between people from TC65 and people from TC57, if you want, the two ways of analyzing the problem, what you call the 62443 and the 62351, and how those standards interact. In one case, the 6351 is dealing mostly with the communication side, and how to implement the communication is the how, and the 62443 is dealing with the what. What else do you need to do? And for example, when you are communicating, you also have endpoints, how you are dealing with those endpoints, what type of security those endpoints need, how do you need to have processes that support those endpoints throughout the life cycle. So how you're going to have vulnerability management, how you're going to have different patches if you need, or how you're going to deal with new incidents that will demand an extra layer of countermeasures. So all this language, it was a learning process in between at least the two groups.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, a common language bringing about more clarity and collaboration must have made a huge difference. What are some of the benefits or results that have been achieved by grid operators who've adopted this approach, this standard?
So one of the first ones will be having the professionals, the cybersecurity professionals, talking the same language that they needed. Yeah. Not just so a very common conflict in organizations is my IT guys are saying this, my OT guys are saying this. Yeah. So how the automation guys or the electrical engineers can speak with the information security professionals, or even with the information technology professionals in a common language, and understanding that everyone has something to contribute in this equation, is understanding that cybersecurity for automation, it goes beyond networks, it goes beyond the software development. It has a lot of engineering variables that needs to be taken into consideration during the implementation time. So that was the first benefit to recognize, and I believe that the more mature organizations that started with this implementation, as I said, more than a decade ago, they are achieving that level of conversation between the teams, understanding and alignment on the business goals, because they can understand that it's not just supporting the business goal, it's part of the business goal, and reducing the risk. The risk is the business risk. It's not just the technology risk. So the involvement between business partners, technology partners, either on the engineering side, on the software side, and the service providers that is managing your supply chain on the product, but also your supply chain on who is helping you to maintain your infrastructure and your business. So those were the first benefits that I could tell that happened right away in the power industry. It is also the understanding that the standard can be initially, if you want, a voluntary exercise. But we can see that in some cases it's being enforced even by regulation now. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And to that point, the standard also needs to evolve all the time to take into account how the threat landscape evolves and what the new vulnerabilities are and so on. So in terms of the working group, what are the priorities right now in terms of developing the standard, deploying it much wider within the power grid sector, and also encouraging more input from the industry itself?
Yeah, so first, the priority at this point is to understand that horizontality that we will need to establish. And the horizontality means understanding that 62443 is not just industrial automation, is automation in general. So that is the first challenge for everybody, because we are used to see, oh no, 62443, it wasn't about power, it was about industrial. No, this is about power as well. It was about power distribution, power generation. Even we have many manufacturers and many providers of substation automation solutions that they already certified against 62443, different parts of 62443 in the last decade. So even we have that consciousness that, yes, we are going into the right direction. We need to start doing it even from the vendor side. And of course, from the asset owner, from the power generator side, from the utility itself, they realize that this is an expectation that they need to fulfill to ensure that they have some level of excellence on deploying, or I would say delivering, the power that is expected from the utility. In the priorities to what develop next is, first, the vertical language for the different markets, including the power grid. Having that language well understood is fundamental, because that will drive more adoption or easy adoption for the professionals to get trained to understand what we are talking about. And also, with the scarcity of cybersecurity professionals, having the possibility to hire people that is already experienced using 62443 in other industries and bring those people into the power grid environment. So it will be easier even for the organizations to either train new people or bring expertise from other industries. And I would say that as a third layer of evolution is including all the evolution of technology for implementation. So understanding that the current concepts, they are not going to change from 62443. They are still applicable for decoupled and decomposed software that is widely used in the smart grid industry. So even in the solar industry, renewables, all these differentiators on the software, they said, okay, this software is different, is a new generation of software, and doesn't match with legacy solutions that exist today in the automation market. But actually, the concepts are still applicable. And this is part of the evolution on the edition 2, edition 3 of the different documents that we are explaining how to apply it. And we hope that we can share that with the rest of the community and actually learn even more. We are not just leading with the standard. We are here to learn all together how to make it better.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for giving us those insights into, the state of play with 62443 for the power grid, what you'll be presenting at the event, and also the activities of the working group. One final question for you, Gabe. What do you hope to achieve or take away from the conference in June yourself?
First, I'm very excited that we are going to meet in person, and we are going to have this physical feedback. We are going to understand each other better. We are going to get the different players. That doesn't matter which particular niche within the power generation and power distribution or power grid you are. We are going to have from smaller solutions for consumers up to massive deployments from big organizations, and we are going to have that knowledge firsthand on what we are doing right, what we need to improve, and what we can collaborate together to make this a collective knowledge repository. 62443 needs to be a repository for all that knowledge to be shared. Shared means that everybody collaborates to bring what they see in the market or what they see in the field that maybe we haven't seen yet. And then trying to find a solution between software developers, product suppliers, service providers, asset owners, and that will bring everybody into the same table and talking the same language. I look forward to the next version and to having more people collaborating, because this is how you create knowledge.
Absolutely. Yes. Wonderful. Sounds fantastic. So, Gabe, thank you so much again. We look forward to seeing you at the IEC 62443 week conference. And thank you so much. You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
Take care.